Welcome back to Forum Daily News. I'm Wyatt Sharpe, and this is your U.S. election tracker update. Well, of course, the U.S. election is now under 1 month away, and there's a lot of conversations about some of the polling, but also what this election could mean for Canada and some of the implications as it relates to that. Joining me now to discuss the latest on all of this is Dmytro Basmat, political reporter. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Wyatt.
So perhaps let's just start out because I know you're someone who covers kind of the geopolitical landscape quite frequently, and you really kind of delve into some topics as it relates to that scene. What could the U.S. election mean for Canada, considering that potentially, shortly thereafter the U.S. election, there's the possibility that Canada could also have a new government?
Well, Canada's relationship with Donald Trump has not always been exactly rosy. And while in office, Justin Trudeau has been at times uncomfortable with Donald Trump as president. He has had to manage diplomatically, and he's done so relatively quietly. There was no outrageous scandals. There were steel and aluminum tariffs that were implemented by Donald Trump that he had to navigate. There was the whole NAFTA renegotiation that especially now Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland had to navigate. But it was relatively quaint. But following the election of 2020, and especially the events on January 6th, Justin Trudeau started to talk about his, I guess, real opinion about Donald Trump. And that was much more heavy, and it's much more targeted and pointed. And at this point, Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party have attempted to tie his opponent, Pierre Poilievre, to the mega conservative movement in the United States under Donald Trump. So it's not exactly a rosy situation right now. And I think it's clear that if Donald Trump does get back into office, then it will be from a place of distrust, a relationship that stems from a place of distrust. I think if Kamala Harris is elected, I think the status quo is going to continue, especially given the fact that Kamala Harris is the vice president under the Biden administration. So I think that it depends on who is elected as to how this relationship will progress within Canada. Historically, Justin Trudeau was very, very chummy with Barack Obama. That's not really the case under Joe Biden. It is a pretty cordial relationship that they have, very diplomatic, and I expect a lot more of that to continue with Kamala Harris if she's elected the next president.
And so you mentioned a little bit about the kind of dynamics between a Justin Trudeau and prime ministership and a Donald Trump presidency, because that is something that we've obviously been under for about 4 or so years in Canada. But if we're looking at what could potentially shake up in terms of the polls here in Canada, showing that Pierre Poilievre is currently ahead and Donald Trump, who in many polls is ahead in the United States right now. I mean, you're mentioning how the Liberals, for example, are trying to make that characterization, comparing and contrasting both Donald Trump and Pierre Poilievre, and kind of saying that they're one and the same, essentially. But from a policy standpoint, is that actually accurate? Do they differ on very many issues that could potentially make it so that, they don't have a rosy relationship, so to speak?
I mean, Canada and the United States have always differed within issues like tariffs and whatnot. So I expect the same to continue. I don't think that the policies are going to be very similar at all between Pierre Poilievre and Donald Trump if he's reelected, and if Pierre Poilievre isn't elected to the next prime minister. That being said, it's certainly working to the benefit of Justin Trudeau if I think Donald Trump is elected in November, because he has attempted to tie that MAGA movement in the United States to what's happening here in Canada. Whether it's successful, obviously, we'll still see, but it's certainly working to his advantage, especially with some of the comments that are perhaps a little inflammatory that Pierre Poilievre continues to make.
And also, just in terms of what you're watching over the course of the next month, there's this obviously famous concept of October surprises, famous thing that happens in campaigns where everyone kind of, especially in 2016, I mean, everyone thought the election was over, and then there was the Russia, issue that came up, and then there was the Access Hollywood video, and it was kind of just, new thing after new thing. Obviously, kind of expect the unexpected, so to speak, but what are you expecting, so to speak, in the next month of campaigning from both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris? What do they need to do in order to perhaps increase their polling numbers?
Well, frankly, I think a lot of people are decided about this race. I think both candidates need to avoid October surprises and have people get out to vote and get their supporters to mobilize the vote. We certainly could see a number of October surprises. We have Hurricane Milton ongoing right now in southern Florida. That's right now uh, taking the power out of over 3 million homes. We just had Hurricane Helen, and Trump has attempted to sow disinformation about the federal government's response to that.